So, Kingdom Hearts 4 is real. That's a sentence I didn't think I'd be saying for a long time. In fact, I told my mom the day before the anniversary event that Kingdom Hearts 4 wouldn't be announced. And well, what do I know? But now that it's here, what do I want from Kingdom Hearts 4? That's kind of a loaded question, though. You see, Kingdom Hearts is my favorite franchise of all time, and Kingdom Hearts 3 was my most anticipated game of all time. When I finally got to play through the whole thing for the first time, I was, to put it lightly, disappointed. Why was that? Well, the most important reason was the ending and overall story. You see, Kingdom Hearts 3 is like Avengers Endgame, in that it brings everything together from all previous entries to hopefully wrap up everything in a satisfying way. Now, in some ways, it does wrap up everything greatly. Like, everything with the core group of characters was truly amazing. Unfortunately, the game got bogged down with trying to catch you up with the side characters. Now, there's nothing wrong with the side characters. I particularly like the Twilight Town gang and their little misadventures. I'm specifically talking about the former organization members hanging out at Radiant Garden. It seems like every time things are starting to get interesting, he calls up to
slow things down.
He tries to explain things that don't necessarily need to be explained. This causes the story to drag to an unbelievably slow pace, only to pick back up again and then be slowed down again. The story became very uneven because of this. This problem came to an head when you first went to the Keyblade Graveyard, and your whole crew literally dies, and you have to bring them back from the dead. To this day, I still don't like this. It brings the game down from its highest point with the Dark Aqua boss fight and the Vanitas rematch, to this unbelievably boring retread of the previous worlds, and you have to fight the same Heartless repeatedly just to end it. This whole up and down in quality with the story is the biggest issue of the game in my opinion. So for the new game, I would say stick with the main cast. You can show the side characters every now and then, but don't let them drag the main story. Not to mention, the main story of KH3 kind of stops every time you enter a Disney World. Now I get it, you want to highlight the story of said Disney World, but in the older games, I never felt like the story slowed down. In KH1, Sora was always asking where Riku and Kairi were, and in KH2, Pete was always there seemingly trying to recruit to Maleficent's side. But in KH3, while members of the organization show up to remind you what they're looking for, Sora is supposed to be learning the power of waking, and he does, but only after completing all of the Disney Worlds. So again, stick mostly to the main characters, but also throughout the game, remind us why we are here, and give us a purpose to be going through these Disney Worlds. I love going through Toy Story and beating up Heartless with Woody and Buzz, but I feel like there needs to be more to it, so keep me invested in the story. I know you can, Nomura. Also, where's my Final Fantasy crossover? Yes, they did return in KH3, but that was in the DLC, not the main game. I think they should return to the main story in some capacity. Not to mention, with the success of the FF7 remake, it would make sense to bring them back and explore the different versions of these characters. Because some people may not know this, these characters and these characters are definitely not the same. Particularly Squall, who seemingly displays emotion on a regular basis, unlike his Final Fantasy VIII counterpart. Granted, I haven't played Final Fantasy VIII, but I've noticed his lack of emotion just from seeing gameplay and watching reviews of the game. So seeing the Kingdom Hearts version of the characters develop and interact with the main cast again is something that would be greatly appreciated for the future of the series. In particular, I would love to see Cloud and Sephiroth return, since they've been missing in action since KH2. Not to mention, the remake has since brought these characters back into the public consciousness like never before. Now seems like the perfect time to bring them back and reacquaint them with the series. Lastly, this is kind of a random thing, but I want to talk about a classic Disney villain who I felt got shafted in KH3. Maleficent and her sidekick Pete. I was hoping for a big, climactic showdown with these two, but I got no such thing. They barely even made a dent in the story, only showing up every now and then to remind the audience that, oh yeah, they exist. So please, bring them back in 4. And when I say bring them back, I mean get people saying, holy crap, they're back. You know, if I was making this video back when I first played the game, I would have had more story complaints, because again, I was very disappointed with the game way back when. But since then, I've come around to a lot of things in the game, except for the ending, but this really isn't the time for that. Maybe in the future, we'll see. Overall, the story of 3 is actually quite fun, and aside from the changes I just mentioned, I think the story is just fine the way it is going. But I would like to bring up one other thing, and this may not be important, but I feel like it needs to be addressed. Don't lose the fun of the story. I know I've been saying that you can't forget the main story, even during the Disney worlds, and you shouldn't, but that doesn't mean we need to lose the fun and goofy atmosphere of the series. I bring all of this up after seeing the main trailer. The new trailer shows off a more realistic world, and if the recent rumors are to be true, the new game will have a darker storyline to go with the new darker and more realistic setting. Even the new Darkseid design looks more deadly to fit in with the new environment. Apparently, Sora might even go through a character arc in the game. This would be appropriate, considering his actions at the end of the last game. He should face the consequences of his actions. But you need to remember that this is a series where your party members are a talking dog and duck. This series is not exactly Shakespeare, and we love it for that reason. It's also been heavily pointed out by various internet sources that Tetsuya Nomura, the director of the series, has clearly taken some inspiration from his cancelled Final Fantasy Vs 13 project, which was reshaped into Final Fantasy 15. If you don't believe me, just look at these two cinematics side by side. It's clear that Nomura is trying to bring back his cancelled game into the Kingdom Hearts series. Despite what the man himself claims, the image speaks for itself. But the reason I bring this up is that FF vs 13 was said to be a very dark story, much darker than anything else he has done. But now that it's coming to Kingdom Hearts, I'm slightly nervous about the whole idea. Although I do have faith in Nomura, I'm anxious that the tone could ruin what the series has built up to this point. I'm probably overthinking this though. Nomura did a great job with the FF7 remake, and the dark tone of that whole story. Again, I just don't want the tone to change completely. So please, don't lose the heart in Kingdom Hearts. Cheesy line, yeah, but that's Kingdom Hearts. Before I end this video, I wanted to quickly talk about some hopes for the worlds we'll visit in KH4. Obviously, we gotta talk about the big one. Star Wars. Since the trailer has been released, fans have been claiming that this thing in the background is actually the foot of an AT-ST. Not to mention, the forest environment at the very beginning of the trailer is really reminiscent of Endor from Return of the Jedi. Not to mention, Nomura has even said he'd like to add Star Wars to the series. For me, I'd love to see Star Wars. I think it would be awesome and just completely insane. Also, could you imagine a Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine boss fight? That's the stuff dreams are made of right there. Also guys, a lightsaber Keyblade. Come on. Next, with the introduction of Pixar worlds in KH3, we gotta bring them back here. I want to see Toy Story come back, and along with that, I would love to have a Zurg boss fight. Since the lack of Disney boss fights in KH3 was disappointing, the only notable one I can think of is Davy Jones from Pirates. Not to mention, leaning into my next world pick, is The Incredibles. A Syndrome boss fight would be amazing. Also, again, an Incredibles world is just a cool idea. Imagine when you get there, and Sora gets his own superhero costume when landing in the world, along with Donald and Goofy. It kind of writes itself at this point. I know this video has been kind of rambly, but I just wanted to talk about a game that I am genuinely excited for. I love this franchise and everything about it. I am also very excited to announce that in the future, I'll be doing a Kingdom Hearts retrospective, covering every game in the mainline series. Exactly when will I do it? Well, you'll have to subscribe and find out. Until then, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Later, everyone.